Welcome to the Herd's official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Colin Cowherd podcast, all of our NFL instant reactions, and more football content. And with that, Joel Klatt, the voice of college football, is now joining us. He's got Penn State at Ohio State this weekend. So, you know, these universities, they always squawk about they're running out of money. Boy, the NIL, how are we going to make the NIL work? And then they buy out James Franklin and Brian Kelly at LSU. So they got plenty of money. We were talking about this. So Florida's got an opening. LSU's got an opening. Penn State's got an opening. Now, I think a lot of it, Brian Kelly always felt Midwest to me, not Southern. I didn't love the fit. But Urban Meyer went down and won natties at Florida, and he's more Midwest. If you said there was the hottest coach in the country, LSU, Florida, Penn State, is there a best job of those three?
Yeah, I think LSU is. And Colin, I would go a step further and say, I think LSU is a top 3 job in the entire sport. I think only Texas and maybe Ohio State are better than LSU. I think LSU is a better job than Bama. I think it's arguable between LSU and Georgia. They've got incredible resources. The recruiting pipeline is right there. You're in the middle of everything in terms of recruiting. They have tradition. Guys can win national championship there, so it comes down to fit. I mean, why does Ed Orgeron fit at LSU and not Brian Kelly? I think it's what you were just talking about being rigid. You know, Ed Orgeron, went down there and he was flexible and did some things that maybe he was uncomfortable with, and all of a sudden they turned into the best offense in the history of college football in 2019 with Joe Burrow. And Brian Kelly, I mean, it was the moment he stepped onto that basketball court and gave the fake Southern accent. I couldn't unsee that or unhear that. So every time I saw him in an LSU shirt or hat, I couldn't unhear the fake accent. It was never a good fit, and the authenticity was never really there at LSU. And now it's starting to come out. A lot of the former players are chirping on social media, and you're trying to decipher what that is and peek under the hood a little bit. But fit is very important. Back to your question about like best jobs, I do think that LSU is the best one of this cycle. And Colin, I would say that these 3 with Florida and Penn State, I think are 3 of the top 10 jobs in all of college football. Yeah. And I can't remember, maybe I'm just being recency bias here. I can't remember a time when we had this level of openings, in particular in October. That's never happened. We can talk about the timing of these firings as well. But these are massive jobs that are all looking for like the A-list guy. And I would actually make an argument that the talent pool is more thin than it's ever been. You know, this is going to produce a bit of an arms race. Lane Kiffin likely will end up being the highest paid coach in college football because of this. Dan Lanning will likely end up being a $15 million a year coach because of this, whether they stay in their respective spots or move. I think LSU is going to call Urban and Nick Saban, because why wouldn't you? I think they're going to call Dan Lanning and they're going to offer him the moon. LSU has a lot of money. This is what people I don't think understand. It's a little bit more quiet than other places around the country, but they've got those billionaires down there, trust me, and they've got a lot of resources, and money will not be the reason that they miss on a coach here. But what they should be thinking about is what we were just talking about, which is fit. Who's the best fit for LSU? Because if you get the fit right, that's a place that can win the national championship.
So 2 games this weekend are fascinating. If USC loses at Nebraska and Vanderbilt beats Texas, Sark and Lincoln Riley are going to get major heat. Now, Sark's got a bit of a pass because Arch Manning hurt, may not play, right? I saw some Sark rumors come out about the NFL. I had said this 2 months ago. Like, I think he's the best candidate out there from the college game is Sark, but I think Texas is arguably the best job, so I would stay in Austin. But let's just look ahead. And I know I always talk USC, but last time you were on, you said it's better now. And I said, okay, the offense was good 4 years ago. The offense was smart and clever, and quarterback play was good. They were very good at home 4 years ago, and they can't win games on the road, and they're a much better program.
That's so surface. That's so
well,
surface.
Maybe I'm surface. I'm in television. Well, maybe it's just the makeup in me.
Maybe.
If they lose to Nebraska, would you acknowledge it's not better than 3 years ago?
Yes. This is a great litmus test of I guess, our positions on this. You talked about like the offense being clever and creative. That's because they had to be, because they weren't balanced. Now they're balanced. And against the teams that they can retain that balance, they are very good. Now, was Illinois a good matchup for them? No. Notre Dame? No. And that's why they need to continue to get better. I believe they're on the trajectory towards getting better in those areas to be better at the line of scrimmage. But what's different now is that they will and are committed to running the football. And they should be able to run it against Nebraska. Nebraska is ranked 15th in the Big Ten stopping the run. And if you allow Lincoln Riley and Jade Mailava to have a run game, they will pick you apart. This is why it's different now, and it's much more sustainable. The one worry would be, like, is their defense going to be able to stop the run of Nebraska? I think Nebraska is okay running the football. They'll certainly try to test the interior of that defensive line. But this has much more sustainability, and the trajectory for USC is a lot more positive now than it was even when they had Caleb Williams, because with Caleb Williams, it was smoke and mirrors. Colin, it was all surface. It was lipstick. It was vanity. Now there's some substance there because of the balance that they play with on the offensive side. And if they retain that against Nebraska, they'll win this weekend. There's not a doubt in my mind. In fact, I would take them and give the 6.5, because I don't think Nebraska stops the run, and there's no way that USC is going to score under 35 points if they're balanced. And if you're telling me Dylan Raiola is going to score 30 or more points against USC, I just don't think that that's going to take place.
So I watched last week, I watched Alabama and South Carolina play, and though it was in a losing cause, I think I draft the South Carolina quarterback first because I see juice. I've always said this about quarterback play. When I watch a college guy, you got to give me one wow trait. I've got to go, wow. Now, so South Carolina,
wrong.
that kid.
You're wrong again.
Ty Simpson has no juice. He's just
no juice. Watch it. Watch his intermediate throws. Watch him control the game from the pocket. Colin. Who wins Super Bowls? Guys that control the game from the pocket. Control the game. Now, you have to do those things first. See, this is, and I bring this up all the time. This is math. You got to have Algebra 1 under your belt before you can go to Algebra 2 and then calculus and do all that. You got to bake the cake first before you put frosting on it. You want to go and you want to put the wedding topper on it and get all the frivolous frosting on the cake, but you got to understand you've got to make the cake first. And listen, Sellers is a terrific player, and he'll certainly be thought of highly in the NFL draft. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. I'm not saying that he's bad, but I'm just saying if you compare their games, the game that Ty Simpson plays directly correlates to the National Football League. He will go in and he will have success. He is a Bo Nix or a Joe Burrow style of guy that can go in there and make those throws right away with anticipation and accuracy. I would also put another guy in there. Fernando Mendoza is going to have a ton of success in the NFL because of what he does from a foundational standpoint. His accuracy, his anticipation, his intellect. Sellers is a wonderful player. But you take a look around the NFL at all these places that draft traits at quarterback versus drafting quarterbacks, and it never ends up well for them. They're turning over offensive coordinators. They're turning over head coaches. It never really works. Maybe that guy will succeed down the road. But to me, the first pick in the draft is going to become a discussion between Mendoza at Indiana and Ty Simpson at Alabama. Sellers is wonderful, but he doesn't control the game from the pocket like those two do. If you look at the last, ever since Tom Brady won his Super Bowl, you look at the quarterbacks that win the Super Bowl, look at their college careers. Look at the style that they play. Look at what they do, their experience. They have over 30 starts combined. I think the average number of starts for the guys that have won Super Bowls since the early 2000s is like 29 and a half is the average number of starts in college. So you're looking for an experienced guy that can go out there, control it from the pocket. So that's what I would say about that. I mean, look at the traits. You keep wanting to draft Caleb Williams, and then now you bag on Caleb Williams, and you're all over Ben Johnson.
Well, no, I liked Drake May and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. I liked all of them. I thought
all of those guys could control the game from the pocket.
Yeah, well, I like Jaden Daniels' movement. I like Bo Nix's athletic ability. I actually like Drake May's athletic.
But those are pluses. Those are like that's the frosting. It's like, great. Now you tell me you got a cake, and now you can put some frosting on it? Now I'm in.
Let me ask you, if Ohio State, so Michigan wins the Natty, then Ohio State wins the Natty. If Ohio State and their defense is clearly the best in the country.
Yeah.
If Ohio State or Indiana wins the national championship, what does it say about the Big Ten SEC comp? What does it say?
You know, I get this question a lot. And I think that it boils down to this. I think at the top end, the Big Ten has the best teams in college football. Indiana and Ohio State, you know, kind of leading the track there. As far as depth goes, in the middle of the conference, you can make an argument that the SEC is better. Now, I do think that some of those teams get overvalued as compared to the top middle of the Big Ten. For instance, these 4 teams I feel like do not get the love that they should. Iowa, Washington, Michigan, and USC. Those teams are better than the AP would suggest. They're better than the narrative would suggest, than the other network would certainly suggest. But the middle of the SEC is very good and very deep, and it makes it incredibly difficult to go out there and win every single week. What I start getting frustrated with in this whole conversation is that you go in overtime if you're Texas against Kentucky and Mississippi State, and you're sitting there and it's like, hold on a second. You can't just tell me that every win in that conference, because it's on the road, is a quality win. And Texas all of a sudden retains their position, even moves up in the AP poll. Meanwhile, Iowa is playing great football. They were just tied with Indiana in the last 2 minutes of their game in Kinnick a few weeks ago, 13-13, and Iowa can't get ranked. You know, so that's where the perception maybe is a little off. Top end of the Big Ten, better. Middle of the SEC, better, deeper. And that's, both of those things can be true.
You know, it's interesting. Because of Phil Knight's money, I wouldn't leave Oregon for LSU, even though I think LSU's a better job. I wouldn't leave Ole Miss for Florida. There's way more pressure, and I think you can have a team that's almost as talent-rich as long as you have 1 or 2 NIL guys. I wouldn't leave. There's only about 4 programs I would never leave. Ohio State, I would never leave. I don't think there's a better job than Texas. If I got LSU rolling, I wouldn't leave. Same with Georgia.
Bama.
What do you do if you're Lane Kiffin? Because you could get Florida or LSU. What do you do if you're Lane Kiffin? He's still young. He's reinvented himself. Ole Miss is a very good job. It's not a great job.
No.
It's a very good job. I would stay because I think he's viewed as the architect of the next 10 years, and he's bounced around a lot, and I think for his personality and what he's done, it's a neat fit. Would you leave? Would you leave if you were Lane?
I mean, LSU is intriguing, right? I just think like LSU is a step above. I think that you have to overachieve at Ole Miss. You've got to do things that the program has never done to reach your ultimate goals and to win at the top end of college football. In a lot of respects, you know, the best years of Ole Miss football, at least in recent vintage, are what we're seeing right now. And does he want better than that? You know, and go to LSU. And we know that LSU can go and put together rosters year in and year out that compete at the top end, not only the SEC, but also of the country, and win a national championship. I do think it comes down to resources. And like I said, I think that LSU has top 2 or 3 resources financially in college football. I know a couple of their boosters, they have deep, deep pockets. And in this day and age, that's what you have to have. That's why Dan Lanning loves Oregon. That and a few other things. I think Dan Lanning and his family love Eugene. You know, Dan told me one time, he's like, you know what's kind of nice is I can go to dinner in Eugene. And you can't go to dinner. I mean, that's something I know that resonates, you know, Colin, with you, is like the quality of life in Eugene is very good. And it's not like he's not able to build a team that can go and perform at the top end of college football and maybe even win the national championship. Heck, they might win the national championship this year. Yeah, I mean, we don't even, you know, we need to see how that team continues to develop and play in this month of November, although their November is going to be pretty difficult for them. So I don't think Dan Lanning will leave, but I think Lane will. I think Lane is if I had to bet, Lane Kiffin is your next coach at LSU.
Wow. That's powerful. That'd be an interesting watch, wouldn't it? It would be. Do you think, hey, let me throw this out there. I know it's just conjecture. I think Sark works in the NFL. I think he does.
Yeah, so you said, listen, obviously he's coached there and done it successfully when he was a coordinator at Atlanta.
Yeah, he was great.
Ryan Day would be another guy. Has NFL background. Remember, he was on a couple of Chip's staffs in San Francisco and in Philadelphia.
How about this argument? That Texas is a great job, but the best jobs in the world, Texas is arguably the best college job. But the best jobs in the world at football are NFL jobs when you have solid ownership and a star quarterback. Your assistants don't leave because NFL pays more and the pensions are great for coaches. So you can maintain a staff. You may lose, McVay may lose an offensive guy once in a while, but you can maintain a lot of your staff. And if you've got a Bob Kraft, if you've got a Kroenke, or you've got solid ownership, Steve Buscemi, you're not going to have a lot of turnover. I mean, I could see Sark going and just saying, if like Harbaugh left for Herbert. That was a smart move. I could see Sark going if they blew out Sean McDermott loses first round of the playoffs. I would leave Texas for Buffalo and Josh Allen. Right?
I mean, I understand. I understand that. It's certainly maybe more attractive, more comfortable, to your point. It's not going to be a money issue. I will say there's two things, and I understand I live in the college football space, but there's two things specifically that are different at the college level that are not an option at the NFL level. Not an option. Number one is that you could impact these kids' lives to a greater degree.
Sure.
So you can influence these guys. And if that's something that drives you and you're passionate about, then college is the place for you. I think that you would agree with that.
Yeah.
The next thing is that in college, you are the quarterback. Bill Belichick is revered and considered one of the great coaches in the history of the NFL. And yet, when we think about the Patriots and their run, who do we bring up first?
Yeah, Brady.
Tom Brady. When you think of Nick Saban's run at Alabama, revered, greatest coach in the history of college football, who do you think of first when I say Alabama?
Saban.
Nick Saban. You see, your legend status is not really available in the NFL. I think they view that as more career things, even with Andy Reid. Andy Reid, when he finally retires, yes, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. They might even put a statue of him up outside of Arrowhead. What are people going to say, though? Well, he didn't win it without Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
You see, at college, you can be a legend. If Ryan Day wins multiple championships at Ohio State, for the rest of his life and beyond, into the ages, he will always go down with Woody Hayes as the only two guys that won multiple championships at Ohio State.
Well, think about this. Think about how many great players UCLA had. It's the John Wooden era.
That's right.
That's
exactly
Lou
right.
Alcindor and Bill Walton, and it's like maybe the two best college players ever. Look at Krzyzewski and Duke.
Look at all the great players. I was just going to say, Coach K.
Duke. Yeah, you're right.
And so it comes down to the two I's: influence over kids and immortality. Those are two things that you don't get at the NFL level. Now, they might leave, but it would be for comfort. It would be for Josh Allen. That's more comfortable. That's more stable. I don't have to deal with all of this stuff. But if you want influence and you want immortality, you stay in college.
Yeah, I mean, I think UConn basketball, I think Jim Calhoun and Hurley.
There you go.
And they've had 60 NBA players maybe. Yeah. Good stuff, Klatt. What a finish strong. I really appreciate that. I didn't like your quarterback take, but everything else was pretty good.
I love it. I love it. Great to see you, my man. Have a good day.
All right. Joel Klatt's doing the Penn State-Ohio State game this weekend. No, that's a good point. You can affect people's lives, and you're more the legend. I like it.